Hey everybody, welcome back to Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I'm your host Caleb.
Hi, I'm Seth. I talk Star Wars with this man.
Alright, well we're gonna kind of just get into it. We normally like to, we've got some new stuff going on today, and we'll talk about that in a minute. If you're watching on Twitch, there are stuff below talking about it, but we'll actually get into it soon enough. But for now, let's talk about what we've been up to this week that's not Star Wars related, because we like to do that around here. We can kind of go back and forth this week.
Okay, we'll start with you. What did you do this week?
So the non-Star Wars related thing, because there's a Star Wars related thing as well, because it's me. But the non-Star Wars related thing is I played an old Game Boy game that I had as a kid, because I wanted to replay it, and I've been in the mood for it, and especially because it's Lego, and I really like Lego games. But there was a time when Lego games were not like how they are now, with like the Traveler's Tale, like the TT Games style. It wasn't that. Before the TT Game style, there were games like Lego Racer, and in this case, Lego Island. This one was Lego Island 2, which was the one I remember more fondly. That and the Extreme Stunts, but I need to replay that one as well to see how that holds up. I learned I'm a dumb child. Or I was a dumb child, I should say.
How did you learn this?
So essentially, the plot of Lego Island 2, it's in the title. It's Lego Island 2, The Brickster's Revenge. The Brickster escapes from jail, which is the bad guy you put away in jail in the first game. You play this kid named Pepper Oni, who's a pizza delivery boy on a skateboard. And so he took down the Brickster in the first game. Second game, Brickster escapes from jail, and he took all the Constructopedias. For all you Lego non-enthusiasts out there, Constructopedias are the instruction manuals for how to build your sets.
Okay.
So in universe, they are also how you build the houses and everything in the universe of Lego Island.
I see.
So he destroyed everybody's homes and then took the instruction manuals to rebuild them.
What a jerk.
As well as like police stations, radio station, all the important places as well. So it's essentially a never-ending fetch quest game where you're going from different people going, hey, I need you to do something for me, which in the process gets you a Constructopedia, and then you go to the next person down and it's very linear. You can see why this game is actually really easy, just from this description, right?
Yeah.
I beat this game in 2 days, and that's like, realistically within a few hours if I like cut down like times I wasn't playing, right? If I were to just count just the time I was playing, it was probably like maybe 8 hours, right? Kid me, on the other hand, played this game for weeks probably before beating it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. But it's a fun game, and the music's kind of chill. It's repetitive, but it's fun. And then I want to play the stunts one again, because there's a stunt spin-off one where you play as Pepperoni again. And the whole thing is that you are on a movie set doing stunts for them. So there's like, you do some skateboarding stuff, and there's like a skateboarding minigame, which I actually had the actual Lego set for that part. Because the Lego set was Pepper, and he had a little backpack thing that came with the little like socket.
Yeah.
And then of course the actual ramp that for both sides of the ramp. And for the socket though, you had a little stick that you could link into the socket and control him that way. So that way you could have him skateboard back and forth on it and do little spins with him that way. I don't have that anymore for sure. I probably have the Legos. I just don't know where they are. I had a lot of Legos. Like,
they're in the void somewhere.
And this is like in a time before Lego franchised. You know what I mean? Like where they just get IPs after IPs. And like Lego Star Wars, the first video game, was kind of the start of that trend. And this was like... And so we lost a lot of old guard, like, because Lego used to have to create its own IPs during this time. Lego had to create their own IPs, such as Pepper with the Lego Island stuff. You had Johnny Thunder, which was their version of like Indiana Jones. I don't know if you know Johnny Thunder, but that was like their version.
No,
Johnny
I'm not familiar with Johnny Thunder.
Johnny Thunder was, and Johnny Thunder actually cameos in Lego Island too, because you get to go on a little adventure with him where you go to Adventure Island, because that's where Johnny Thunder does his adventuring. Because obviously he had his own little set. You went to the Adventure Island stuff if you wanted to do that, because it was like Lego Island, Adventure Island, and then you had like Lego City, which has kind of made a comeback with some of the modern games, right? With like Lego City Undercover. But then, of course, you had Lego Racer, which introduced the most awesome character of all, Rocket Racer. Who you then kick the ass of, like you beat him in his own game. You know. Because Lego Racer 1 is you competing to beat him. And it actually cameos all those other characters, like Johnny Thunder's because they had like circuits, and so each one has a circuit. So Johnny Thunder has his circuit, and you beat him, and then you can use his clothes and his car stuff to make, because Lego Racer, the whole idea is you build your car, and then you build your racer, and so it's very, very, like, I think Lego games have kind of lost that charm. I think Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga actually brought that back, because Complete Saga, you can build your own character using all the little bricks that you get from other characters that you've unlocked. I would like to see that in like Skywalker Saga. I think Skywalker Saga would be cool to have a build your own character thing. I would like to see that in future Lego games. I know they have a new racing game, 2K, Lego 2K Drive, which is okay. It's no Lego Racer, but I heard it's good. That's the first thing I did.
Okay, so apart from work this week, because you gotta work, because woohoo, things are fun. I actually
Did you actually beat Cyberpunk?
I've beaten Cyberpunk.
Woo!
I beat that a while ago.
Although I don't think we ever officially talked about it.
Yeah, I don't think we ever talked about it. I think because we had a bunch of stuff to do that week.
Yeah, but you beat Cyberpunk officially.
Yep.
Woo! Or at least the base game, because you can't
I can't get the DLC.
You don't get to get involved with the president.
Yeah, I don't get to get involved with the president. Which is a very weird statement.
It's also very funny because you can actually... it's not a spoiler because it can happen in the first few minutes. You can fail that and fail the DLC. Like,
oh, great.
You can lose game over it essentially right at the start, which by just ignoring the, hey, go bodyguard the president. But if you go to do other stuff, president dies, and then, well, game over.
Oh, no.
So you can actually game over state that.
Get down, Mrs. President.
Yeah.
There was one of the great side quests that I got, and it happens really late in the game, and you have to go through a bunch of other stuff. You have to go through a completely different side quest. So, to give some context for why this side quest happens, where you go and you essentially get called up by, like, a pop star who's like, hey, thanks for helping Carrie and us resolve, like, our shit, since he came in and wanted to kill us, and you talked all of us down from doing that. I've got a stalker. Do you mind helping me out with that? And I was like, well, I'm not doing anything else. I've just got done with all the crime in the city. So why not? I'll pay a visit, see what's up. Sure. And so you go, and she's like, alright, so here's the deal. I'm gonna walk around the boardwalk for a little bit, and you let me know if anyone's, like, suspicious or anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I go, and I'm like, alright, cool. There was a brief moment where I lost track of her and did not know where she was.
Oops.
But I was able to find her again really quickly.
Okay. So we're good.
So we were good.
We're good.
And I was So, like, of course, there are encounters where it's like, like, she gets catcalled a couple of times, and I'm like, well, that's asshole behavior, sure, but that's not a stalker's behavior. And so I go and I wait, and eventually I'm like, looking around, I'm like, ah, great, there's another guy that's just been kind of like being an asshole to everyone in the area. I'm like, okay, that's not stalker behavior either. I'm like, it's rude, but it's not what I'm looking for. And eventually, like, this girl will walk up and be like, hey, can I get a picture and everything? And I'm like looking at the situation, I'm thinking about things, and I'm like, And the weird part is that girl keeps like looking. So where I am is like leaning against a vending machine, waiting for like this interaction to be over. And that, so she goes and she eventually gets like her picture taken, and then I realize, and so she starts walking past, and I realize that I'm standing right next to a gun store, and I'm like, you know what? If I'm wrong about this, this is probably going to be bad. So I'm like, on the other hand, who's gonna stop me? So I decide, you know what? Weird lady who's been skittish and is about to walk into a gun store after asking for a photo from this famous pop star who you shouldn't have known was going to be here. It's nap time for you.
Nap time.
And so I go and I like look through their stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, this was the right one. She's got like a journal written and like dates, times when you're going out. Also, here's this gun she brought with her.
Yeah, that was probably the right person.
And she's like, because like the pop star is like, oh, how did you know? And it's like, here's all of this evidence.
Here's all this stuff showing that they were a danger.
Yeah. And she's like, well, what's gonna happen when, like... She's like, what do we do now since I've got them unconscious? And I'm like, well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna wait for the police to show up. And she's like, but what if she gets out of prison? And I'm like, that's gonna be a really long time. She's like, yeah, but if we just kill her now, we won't have to do it. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
That's too much.
It's too much.
That's too much, man.
Now, if you fail that quest and do not catch the stalker in time, she will die.
Oh.
The stalker will get shot by one of her bandmates, and then the bandmate will blame you for not doing your job. And then you'll have to fight her.
Good.
And she'll die too.
So it's my fault if...
Yeah. So I'm like, man, good thing my instincts were right. And they usually are in most games. Like, even in, like, first Last of Us. So, you know the Pittsburgh section and how that starts? When it's, like, the guy is pretending to be injured.
Yeah.
First time through, I was like, you're not hurt. It's bullshit that you're hurt, actually. Because the rest of the highway was blocked up to here. Like, context clues are important.
Yeah.
So, back to you. What did you do this week?
I 100%ed the trophies for Star Wars Outlaws, so it's now platinumed on my PlayStation account.
Nice.
Woo! I am now part of the 0.7% of people who have done that. Because some of those were not, like, they were a more grindy than a pain. Like, the other one that's a 0.7% of people that have gotten it. Because originally, actually, I guess more people have gotten it since I originally got it, because it was the 0.6%. But now it's a 0.7% for platinuming it. But the other 0.7 one is actually punching up, which is defeat each syndicate's capital ship without taking hull damage. Because you got hull and then you got shields.
You got shield.
So as long as you take shield damage only, you're good. But you have to attack each of the syndicate's capital ships, and so they don't always spawn in. But you can look up where they spawn, and then you sometimes have to just reset the area.
Yeah.
Until they spawn. So that was kind of a pain. Also having to figure out the right weapon loadout for each time, because I was fully upgraded, because that's actually one of the trophies as well, is to have a fully upgraded ship. So I had that one, The other one that I had to finish was Into Darkness, which is killing 10 enemy ships when in the Kijimi, field, like they're the like. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I'm looking through the trophies now. It is the. Well, there it is. The Nebula. So it's like you didn't get to play that part, so you haven't seen the Nebula, but it's basically just a clouded area where it's just all fog, like in space, and so it's like it's a nebula, and so but there are like clean spots in that nebula, and if you kill people in that doesn't count towards your 10, so you have to actually be in the cloudy parts of the nebula to get it to count.
Yeah, I was too busy punching the air where stormtroopers used to be.
Yeah, and so. Surprisingly, also one that felt like it was a grind, and it's one I got earlier on though. But I had to actively do it, and it felt like it took time. Was the one to get a faction to get the lowest reputation with the faction. That one felt like grindy because I had to actively screw them over on purpose, and it took a little bit of time to get enough reputation loss on them. Although now I basically got all my full rep back, but I also deleted the game now that I've trophied it.
Yeah.
Even though there's still so much I can do in that game, but I had to make room for the next games I've got to play. So, anything else you wanted to talk about before we went into news? Because I think this...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, first thing is I was talking with, like, Chris, Steve, and the rest of the gang.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, so they've been playing like a lot of other online games, and I was like, you know what, I'll try For Honor just for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I can't play it online, but it does have a story mode.
It does indeed.
And so I've been going through that, and the first
which the gameplay is still like the online mode. It's
the gameplay is the same regardless of the mode you pick. I had a lot of trouble during the first, for lack of a better term, boss fight. But I did manage to beat it eventually after 7 to 8 tries for a system that is not as complicated.
It's really not. It's basically a capture sort of game.
There's that
for a lot of
most of it.
Yeah. And then you have your boss encounters, and that's
the
about
boss
it.
encounters, which are like little one-on-one duels. And I'm gonna be for real, like, I kicked my ass pretty hard. I beat him eventually, though.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably the part you probably preferred more, though, knowing you, was the one-on-ones.
I don't mind, like, capturing points. I get it. Like, because that one's actually a decent one. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
It very much, like, gives me the,
gives you that.
Dynasty Warriors when you're trying to capture a point.
Except if the combat was a little more complicated, because it's
slightly more complicated.
Yeah, and not in a bad complicated, but like in a there's actual, like, it's not just you swinging. There's actually you have to swing certain directions at certain block certain directions at certain. I think most people know how For Honor works.
A game that's been out for a couple of years now,
compared to say like Dynasty Warriors, which is very much just hack and slash without the. It's not as, I want to say a better word than complicated, but it's like, I can't think of one right now, but yeah.
The other thing is I've continued to run my 2020 game of Cyberpunk.
Yep.
And now I'm like, alright, there isn't a clear antagonist at this point, because it's like...
You're still trying to figure out the world building with them?
Not quite. We got done with, like, Sky's character, their little chapter, which is go shoot the district attorney for this virus that I've got in your cybernetic eye. And if you don't, I'll use your own eye to lobotomize you.
Ah.
And me and Steve, after the game one night, we were like, yeah, there's a really easy solution to this, but we're just not going to say it out loud in case Sky hasn't thought of it.
Huh.
Which is, just go get a different cyber eye.
There you go, Sky. Now you know.
But it's too late now.
Oh, he's already... Okay.
Because that plot point's been resolved.
I was gonna say, Sky watches our content.
Yeah,
so.
I know he does. You know what? Why don't you clip this and send it to him? And so, like, later on during the game, I'm explaining, like, hey, the lady that hates you, right, for our Cyberpunk game, doesn't need to keep the lobotomy virus in your eye anymore because she's got all of this dirt on you. She knows you killed the district attorney.
Mm-hmm.
She knows that you admitted to it and has a recording of it. And lastly, even if she didn't, she knows where you live. Well, no, she doesn't know where you live, but she knows how to get to you.
Yeah.
So she's like, I got all of this stuff to not worry about. She's like, you work for me now. The next funny part is that, so you know how in a lot of my games, I'll essentially have, like, a party NPC to help people out for the first couple of levels.
Yeah. It's the standard D&D thing to have the beginner DMPC to kind of, like, guide.
Yeah. Well, this one got a job offer because for Cosmo stuff, he is not paying the rest of the group or anything like that. So when someone actually came along and offered some money to the DMPC, they were like, yeah, I think I'll take that job. And all they had to do was flatline Steve's character, who was also there, and it's like... And Steve had a great moment of just realizing what was going on.
Oh.
Because he was like, oh, we're not taking the kid with us to, like, go and, like, use them as blackmail against their mom. And I'm like, you're right, we're not. Matter of fact, I'm going to deliver them back to their mom for those $5 million.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, oh, he betrayed the party. And it's like, yeah, he did. But you guys weren't paying him, so this was like a legitimate job offer as opposed to just dealing with whatever fuckery has been going on the past couple of days.
Yep.
So now we're at... And so before I have, like, that particular NPC, like, leave the city as a whole, I'm like, you know what? He's gonna go and call up Cosmo, Sky's character, one last time and explain, like, just so you know, I am leaving, but before I leave, there's another guy that's snooping around asking for you since you kind of screwed over the Yakuza a while back. Do you want me to go handle that? And Cosmo, who is still mad at old boy for flatlining Zero, Steve's character, goes, no. As a matter of fact, I want to see you dead. And old boy is like, alright. Hey, you see that coffee cup over there that's on your counter? Bang. Just to prove that at any point, I could take you out. But instead I'm gonna leave you with that knowledge and leave. So that's what that's going, and the next question is, what are we going to do from here? Because while I have some plot ideas, I know that certain NPCs, one, don't care. And I'm trying to figure out kind of what to do with Steve's character. His new one, not his other one, because that one's dead.
Yeah.
I have an idea for the next thing that's going to involve Chris's character, but I basically just need some time to think. Other than that, though, been having a pretty good time. So those are the two things I wanted to talk about, I guess.
All right. So before we go into our news segment, I do want to go ahead and talk about our sponsor. So let me pull up their little shout out, so that way y'all can access it. But meals. That's usually a pain in the ass to figure out. Especially for someone like me who has to like deal with like diabetes, and so meal planning can be a little bit more stressful. Having to figure out, oh, I can eat this, can't eat that. But something like HelloFresh, I think, really solves that a little bit better because you can tell them on their website, hey, I want something a little more healthy, a little bit more veggies or whatever, right? When you select your plan. So what we're able to offer today is we actually have a special code that if you subscribe to HelloFresh and use our code right here, which appears in the chat right now on Twitch, you can receive 10 free meals and a free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while the subscription is active. If you're in the U.S., outside the U.S., the discount will apply differently. But also our link is there. If you're watching on YouTube, you can still support us. The link is down below. So there's still a way to support us if you're watching on YouTube. And so, yeah, so we're sponsored with them today, by them today, and I think that really works out. And so they have so many options. I looked on there today just to kind of get an idea of like what kind of meal plans I would want. And so like they have like 50 plus dinner options with some more market items, right?
That's a lot.
Yeah. And so you got a lot of options, and like with this code, like it came out to like 30 something for 2 meals plans. So like for like, so that's including the free breakfast though. So that's like really like 4 meals or so, because I was like picking the cheapest option just to see. And so yeah, and so you can get some calorie smart options as well as protein smart, which is once again beneficial to somebody like me because diabetes, you're really watching like trying to get your protein but also keeping an eye on your calorie count and your so like that's stuff you're watching, and so more carbs than calories, but like that's still stuff you can watch when you're on HelloFresh. So yeah, go check out our sponsor today. The links are wherever you're watching. If you're on YouTube, it's right down below. If you're on Twitch, it's in the chat right now, as well as in the About Us today. So and we'll be doing this for the next month, so you'll have the next 30 days to sign up using this code. So with that, let's get back to our normally scheduled stuff and talk about, and we'll talk about them again later. But for now, let's go ahead and get back to some Star Wars news. Because we do have a piece of Star Wars news.
A. Singular. As in one.
As in uno. I mean, technically, if we want to talk about it, we can talk about how they. So I guess we'll start with that then, even though it wasn't on the schedule.
Yeah.
They stealth dropped an audiobook on us. I learned about that as I was going through the news this morning, and I was like, so what are we going to talk about today? And so I'm going through Star Wars Newsnet, which is where I usually go to find what to talk about news-wise. And I find out on like Thursday or whatever, they stealth dropped an audiobook into Audible. So if you have Audible Originals, you can access it. So like if you pay the monthly, it's free. And it's called Padawan's Pride. And it's about Obi-Wan and Anakin, and it takes place before the events of Obi-Wan and Anakin. I haven't gone to listen to it yet. We'll make that part of the schedule somehow. And it's I'm curious what that means, because this is I would think this is an Anakin that's even less sure of himself than say, because Obi-Wan and Anakin, that to me, that's when Anakin really finds out. Yes, that's when he commits to being a Jedi. I think we're in a point where he's not truly committed yet. It's also unexplored territory, because it's like that pre-episode 1 to 2, it's that mid-episode 1 and 2 area that I'm okay with exploring a little bit more, because it's that conversation we've had where pre-episode 1, cool. Between episodes 1 and 2, cool. Clone Wars, we're done. No more.
We're so done.
Unless it's like characters that we haven't followed, because like we gave the excuse with the Bad Batch, we said, well, we can talk about them more because we don't see a lot of them in the Clone Wars era, and so, but yeah, so I'm interested to see how this audiobook is and give it a listen at some point. I'll probably listen to it this week and add it to the schedule at some point. As far as the actual news I had scheduled, Ubisoft released their new roadmap for Star Wars Outlaws. And it definitely appears that they and Massive Entertainment are listening to the fans of the game, as they're adding some new tweaks for stealth, because that's probably been the biggest complaint, is the stealth. And then they're also adding some more contracts for free, so more, which I think will keep the game fresh and alive, because that gives you, like, say if I were to keep playing, that gives me more stuff to be like, what am I going to do to raise my, and playing the same contracts over and over, because they only have so many contract types. So, I mean, stealing from pirates and the Empire, and then from the other cartels, you got to shuffle it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, I was just laughing at, like, because we played this a couple of weeks ago, about, like, how people are complaining about the stealth, and I'm thinking about it, I'm like, what do you mean? The stealth in that game is fucking amazing.
But you know what I mean, like, it's like, because sometimes the stormtroopers are too dumb, or sometimes sometimes they see you through walls, and it's just like, but how? Some people have had that. And so, and it's the usual Ubisoft type of situations, but it is good that they're listening, right? The other thing that they've been listening to is that people don't want to have to go through, I think it's the Epic Game Store to get it, I think, or no, it's through the Uplay. If you want to,
oh yeah,
if you want to get the game, you have to go through Uplay if you want it on PC, right? It's coming to Steam, baby. So for all you normal people out there who use Steam, it's coming to Steam on November 21st, according to the roadmap, which is also the same day that we're getting our first story DLC, Wildcard. So I think that kind of works out. You release it on Steam, and then you go, hey, and also, since you're already getting it, pay for this first DLC. And that's supposed to be the Lando DLC.
Alright.
So, thoughts on that outside of...
I don't know. I'm sure you will tell me all about the DLC.
Oh yeah, we'll probably do like we'll probably make it part of an episode as like a mini, like me giving a mini review of it, since we got that one, and then a second one is further down the road. They haven't released the date for that one yet, which that one's supposed to be the Hondo one.
Oh, he made it!
Yeah.
Fucking love that guy. That criminal scum. It's my favorite criminal. How can you not love that man?
I love that we get Hondo stuff. Well, we can talk about that, because that's what we're going to jump into now. We're going to go ahead and get into our main topic for today, which is the Clone Wars stories of Light and Dark.
Apologize.
No, you're good.
Fucking long ass hair.
So this is an interesting one, because a lot of it is just retellings of the Clone Wars episode. I mean, all but one are a retelling of a Clone Wars episode from a different perspective for most of them. Yeah. Like, a lot of them are like, oh, well, here's this person's perspective. I think Ambush is weird because it's from Yoda's perspective, which the episode is already Yoda's perspective, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But now we get just his inner monologue.
His internal monologue.
Yeah. And so, like, I think overall, this is probably going to be a short review, because a lot of it is, like, just going, how do we think that they translated from episode to short story, right?
Yeah. Yoda's main, like, side mental thing is, like, kind of disturbing how these clones are, like that with the orders.
Yeah. And so, first one is Sharing the Same Face, which is a retelling of Ambush, and it's written by Jason Fry, who does a lot of Star Wars books that you haven't gotten a chance to enjoy yet. But he's a pretty good author within the Star Wars community. And so I think he did all right. I mean, once again, it's really the only major change is the inner monologue and going, oh, okay, yeah, stuff that we figured Yoda was probably thinking during this time of, it's kind of weird how the clones are treated. I don't like it.
Yeah. Also, his explanation of what droids kind of feel like in the Force. He's like, there's nothing there, but that lets me know that they're there.
I will say the other benefit of so this was a case of I did the audiobook while you had my physical book. So the audiobook takes advantage of its medium by getting the voice actors from the show to do each story individually.
I see.
And so this was great to listen to because it was like, oh, I'm listening to the voice actor read their story. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, overall, like, I'm already going to kind of just jump out the gate with what my number is on here because it's a safe short story collection. It's 7. It's a strong 7. Like, that's hey, it's good. It does what it needs to, but it's really safe with the exception of Bug. Bug is kind of the exception because it's the only original story within this collection. And so, I mean, I guess it's a good way to get somebody who might be more of a book person into, like, the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So, like, if you have somebody who's like, I'll read a book, but I don't want to spend all this time on watching all 7 seasons of the Clone Wars. If you want to give them the vibe of the Clone Wars, this is great for that. But if you've watched it all, then it's kind of just like, oh, I'm listening to a retelling of these. And in case you haven't noticed on the show, I have skipped a lot of retellings of things. Like, I skipped the comic book adaptations. I skipped the only ones that I'm thinking I will eventually add to the show are, like, full novelizations. And that's because, like, we don't do the junior novels. Because, to me, on this show is we're going through canon, and then we're going through, like, the prime way to tell that story. But also, if it adds more to like if something adds more context, then we'll talk about it. So that's why I'm thinking down the line, whenever we get to, like, Solo's novelization, we'll read the novel even though we watch the movie, right? And we can then compare and contrast because the adult novelizations tend to add the deleted scenes back and canonize them in some way, right? Whereas, say, a comic book or a junior novel tend to cut things rather than add things. It's the reason why we're not going to do the Thrawn comics that are adaptations of the novels. Because it's like, well, you're cutting pieces of the novel to tell the story. So why would I want the thing that has less content? And why would I want to talk about that on a show like this where we talk about... And so the reason that this gets a pass is because of Bug. Literally the only reason that this gets a pass is because Bug is in it. And so we could have just made this a really short episode and just talked about Bug and then had other things to talk about because we still have comic book catch-up that we didn't get to this week.
Yeah, that would be my fault this week where I was like...
But you also had a busy work week, and it's going to get even busier next week.
Yeah.
So
it's that time of year.
So next week is going to be a case of probably only the book review for next week as well, and no comic book catch-up section. We'll see.
We will see.
But more than likely. Especially because the next week's book is an actual young adult novel and not just a collection of short stories. But, I mean, was there a favorite retelling of any of these episodes?
I'd say, for me, the two that I really liked are Bug and Bane's story.
Oh, yeah, because you get Bane. Yeah, you get Bane's version of, like, of Obi-Wan undercover episodes. Actually, it tells you which episodes. It is the Deception, Friends and Enemies, and The Box, and Crisis on Naboo. And you get him retelling it to Boba and Bosk, which is great. Because it's very... That's the interesting thing about these, is that because they're being retold from a different perspective most of the time, you get a sort of twisted version of the narrative. Yeah. Like, Cad Bane makes it very clear. He's like, I never liked Evol, and I never liked...
I didn't like Evol. I didn't like Hardeen. I wish Dooku would shut up and just tell me. Like,
you really get his opinion on certain people.
He's like, could you fucking pay me for the love of God.
You kind of learn why he works alone.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay, this is why this man solos most of the time.
Yeah.
Except for his droid.
Except for his droid.
And then he'll only work with others if he has to. Like with the hostage crisis or with... Or breaking into the Jedi Temple for the...
One of the funniest bits is when he's talking about the like gymnast bounty hunter, and he's like, I hope she isn't dead because she owes me money. Which is great.
I like Dooku Captured. I like
Dooku Captured is a fun one because it's like just...
It's Count Dooku's narrative, and so
he's
getting
like,
his perspective...
I'm not sure about this Skywalker kid. He's kind of...
He's got a little bit of a dark side.
Yeah.
I like it, but it's also like, ugh. He's like, I like when he leans into it, but it also, he threatens me a lot when he does it.
Yeah.
And of course, this is a recording to Palpatine that he eventually deletes because he's trying to give like a report of what happened in the Dooku Capture and
like
Gungan General episodes.
He's trying to like give his report and also make himself sound good for being captured, which is very amusing.
He's like, it's okay, I had the plan for how we were gonna get out.
Yeah, don't worry, I had it under control the entire time.
And that Kenobi and Skywalker, they just got in the way. If it wasn't for me, they'd still be there.
Yeah.
And then he was like, you know what, actually, I'm going to delete that, because he doesn't need to know what happened.
He doesn't need to know. He knows, but he doesn't need...
He doesn't need to know the deeper details, because he was already involved.
Yep.
Because Dooku knows his secret, so he's like, he was already involved.
Hostage Crisis is
Anakin's perspective of the Hostage Crisis episode, which once again feels like the Yoda one. It's like the episode was Anakin's perspective already.
Yeah, so we know.
Once again, it's just inner monologue. So
Then we've got
Pursuit of Peace, which is the heroes on both sides in Pursuit of Peace arc.
It's
Padme's perspective. Once again, kind of taking a perspective we already had.
Admittedly, her having the line of, "Man, am I ever glad to be arrested?"
Yeah. It's not like these aren't bad. It's just it feels like it's a waste of telling.
Yeah.
Like I would have picked different episodes if this is what you were gonna do with them. I get why I get why Ambush is in here because it's the first episode of the show.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's like you could have picked a different episode.
Yeah.
Shadow of Umbara from Rex's perspective, which
is fun.
kind of works because I would say the episodes for the Umbara arc were really from Fives, and I would say
Echo and Fives.
Like I'd say the episodes themselves were really their perspective.
Yeah, and Rex
is kind of in the background.
Rex is there.
Like, and sure, he's learning a lesson, so it's actually good to see his arc within that arc, and how he's like, I'm gonna follow every order. Oh no!
Even though I really don't want to.
But also, I'm a good soldier.
And eventually, man.
Sometimes good soldiers don't follow every order.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great setup for Order 66. Considering what the chips make them say every time. Good soldiers follow orders. So I think this is a nice little,
I'm glad Dogma fucking killed Grell.
Dogma got his,
Yeah. Like, we all know, it's a case of like, hey, Dogma, we are gonna have to send you to jail for this one.
But we'll try to get you out early.
Yeah, because we can't have
murderers,
and also people thinking, oh man, crazy how a clone killed their commanding officer.
Yeah, we can't let clones do that.
Because that'll fuck up.
That
the
messes
war
our PR.
Effort.
Yeah.
We're all glad that it happened, but
yeah,
for the sake of public relations,
it can't have happened.
Yep. Then we get...
we talked about Bane's story. Then
gas bag is the word Bane uses for people he wishes would just shut the fuck up.
But just then ironic because then he talks about an actual alien that is a gas bag by his description.
Yeah.
And he's like, for the box episode.
Like, yeah, it was weird.
Then we get the Lost Night Sister, which is Bounty.
Which is Asajj's verse.
Once again, kind of picking a perspective we already know.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there wasn't really a lot of choices there. Boba's perspective, maybe, I guess, because Boba's kind of missing in some of the episode.
Mm-hmm. Man, Boba just cannot help beefing with adults, can he?
No. He has kind of like a Napoleon complex, it feels like, and it's like, you're a child, of course you're small.
Admittedly, I don't think he knew she could use space magic at that point, so...
No, he didn't.
It's like some weird bald lady is a member of my crew now. Then there's
Dark Vengeance, which is the Brothers and Revenge episode, which we've watched the Brothers episode. I don't think Revenge we've seen yet.
Where Maul goes and like tries to.
Oh no, we have seen Revenge.
Yeah, because
sorry, it's the episodes after this where we stop.
Yeah.
Where we haven't seen them in the podcast yet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Dark Vengeance, we've seen both episodes that are part of it, which are Maul's perspective, which actually I think is an interesting perspective because I would say those episodes were mostly Savage's perspective.
Yeah.
So getting Maul's perspective is interesting.
And the fact that Dark Vengeance is framed as Maul speaking to a child. Presumably the listener in that one is a child and he's explaining like, yeah, I fucking killed so many people just to get this one guy.
Yeah, because he talks about the massacre that they committed just to get Kenobi to show up.
Yeah.
And then Ventress shows up. And I love the way he like talks about Ventress and how he's like,
why are you helping him?
You are his enemy, like me.
What is wrong with you?
Once again, the audiobook being great because Sam Witwer is you get him reading this and it's so good. Almost a Jedi is episodes we haven't watched yet, or an episode we haven't watched yet. A Necessary Bond. It's kind of weird that they only picked one of those episodes instead of like because a lot of them they try to get the arc if it was an arc.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird that for this one it's just a single episode. When there is kind of an arc narrative to that one, because you start with the crystal episode where they get their crystals on Ilum, and then you get the Hondo attacking them, and then you get this one, which is Grievous attacking them.
Yeah.
And then there's like one more episode after that, I think, in the arc, where they have to save Ahsoka. But I actually didn't mind this one because it's from one of the Younglings' perspectives during the Youngling arc. I thought it was good. I mean, I wish that I wish they had done the full arc if they were going to tell that story, but it's not bad. I think my favorite one though is the one we're going to talk about next. When it comes to like out of the ones that were adapted, right? Out of the ones that were adaptations of episodes, I think Kenobi's Shadow might be the best use of this, of getting the inner monologues of a character whose perspective we had already been watching the show from.
So this is one of the ones where I was like, where I have been hanging out a lot in the Discord audio calls with like Steve and Chris and Andrew.
Yeah, and so you know this event.
I know of this event, and Kenobi's Shadow is actually out of the entire short story collection the one that I was like, hey, do you guys mind if I read this one out loud? And so I did. And at the end of it, Chris is like, I didn't know that was also a part of the lore, and I'm like, yeah, Obi-Wan has a lot of good reasons for wanting Maul dead, but he's like, I can't do that.
Yeah, I think this is an adaptation of the Lawless episode.
Yeah, and explaining like
I think this really shows why fans think Kenobi, because there's an argument of who is the prime example of a Jedi.
Yeah.
I think Kenobi makes a very strong case. Although I don't mind the Kanan arguments, but you haven't had a chance to experience him outside of the Rebels comics. But I think this makes a very strong argument for Kenobi because we see him go through like the full stages of grief in an instant. and also like control his rage,
Mm-hmm.
because there is a split moment where he is going to give into that dark side and go, I'm just gonna kill this motherfucker.
As a matter of fact, everyone in this room.
And that's what Maul is counting on, right? Because Maul wants that, because that's why he did it.
Yeah.
He killed. Spoilers for a show that's really old, and a major spoiler for that season 5. Kills Satine in front of Obi-Wan, specifically to antagonize Obi-Wan,
Yeah.
and kind of pull at that string, because he wants Obi-Wan in that dark place, because he wants Obi-Wan, like, we get it in the Dark Vengeance. From Maul's perspective of those episodes, Dark Vengeance is him explaining, I want Obi-Wan to be in the whole dark place that I can get him before I kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kenobi's shadow gets Obi-Wan's perspective of Maul doing that, and Obi-Wan almost giving Maul exactly what he wants, but then just at the last minute yanking it from Maul, which only angers Maul more.
Yeah.
Because Maul senses it. He's like, oh, he's doing it. He's gonna do it. And then Obi-Wan's like, actually, I'm better than that. And I think this is probably the most emotional story in this collection. Like, I think I told you, I was like, this is the one that's you're probably gonna get some heartstrings pulled in this collection from one story, and I didn't say which one because I wanted you to find out on your own. But this is the one. This is the one that's like, oh, this. That's why I think this might be... It might be okay that they were like, hey, let's retell stories with characters' perspectives we already had. Because it can be used effectively. Shout out to Greg Van Eckhout for this one. Because that Kenobi's Shadow might be the best... It is the best in this collection, as far as I'm concerned. Like, if it was just this and Bug... I would give this like an 8 out of 10. Because Kenobi Shadow is that good, in my opinion. But with everything else, I have to look at it as a whole. So it's like a 7 with everything. I really appreciate Kenobi Shadow for what it does, and it adds to the lore. Because like you were saying in that call, they were like, I didn't know about this.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, Maul is the problem in Obi-Wan's life that for the longest time just fucking kept coming back.
But also it adds to the lore in the sense of an Obi-Wan, like, as a character thing, because you get that... Because I bet most people consider Obi-Wan as somebody who would never feel that way.
Yeah.
But to actually see him as a human still feel that way about someone he loved, because they remind us in this short story that he would have left the Jedi Order if she had asked.
Mm-hmm.
Because it reminds us of that. And then it's like, oh yeah, now it's a very emotional story in a good way.
I think this is, I guess, tangentially related.
Yeah.
A Jedi's purpose is perhaps one of my favorite like Star Wars comic runs, because it's just Obi-Wan thinking about like all the Clone Wars and things going through that,
and like what it means to be a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And even that we see that he's not prone to he is still prone to failure because he is still human.
Yeah.
Like that's a lesson that I think everybody forgets about Jedi, is that Jedi are still at their core regular people.
Yeah.
Just with God powers.
Admittedly, I'm very harsh on them, and we've gone over this before.
Because you view great power comes great responsibility, and so you kind of put them at a higher thing of like, hey, you have more of a responsibility because of this power. And there's nothing wrong with that view either. It's just we have to also be mindful of they're people.
Yeah, and people are fallible.
Yep.
You're not going to succeed every time.
Before we get into Bug.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go ahead and remind everybody about our sponsor, HelloFresh.
You can see them over in the little corner here.
Yeah. And I'm putting the sponsor link into the chat for Twitch. But if you're watching on YouTube, it is linked down below. And if you sign up, that helps us. But also, we're going to be doing this for the next 30 days, so you have a chance. It gets you 10 free meals on sign up, as well as free breakfast for life, which is great because tomorrow is International Coffee Day.
Oh.
So hey, get your breakfast with with your coffee.
I don't know how quick they'll get
No.
there, but hopefully it'll be quick enough.
Yeah, I probably won't get there in time for tomorrow, but hey, for
It's
future
better than
plans,
nothing.
yeah, you'll be ready for next year. For next year's International Coffee Day, if you still have a sponsor, if you still have your subscription, because it's free breakfast for life, which is also probably like one of the toughest parts for me is figuring out like what I'm gonna eat because once again I need something high protein, but also good for me, and so I mean I do the breakfast bowls thing right now, but if I did HelloFresh, that would probably
It'd probably make it a lot easier for you.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, it's a good way. And with the new also like if you've got kids, it's good for that because the new school year, and say you want to save a little bit more money by doing this instead of doing school lunches or whatever else you would do for packed lunches. This could help incentivize some ideas, or even like as a parent, you might be too busy working to like go shopping and find something specific to eat. So this could expedite that and make it easier for you to already have pre-made meal plans that come right to your door, and all you have to do is cook them. And so, I mean, probably saves you some time, I would imagine, if you're a parent who's in a rush, working a day job, taking your kids to school, still have to feed your kids when they get home. But yeah, so shout out once again to HelloFresh, who is sponsoring today's episode of Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. Let's get back, though, into the last short story that we're going to talk about. Bug. This one's kind of rough, too. But it's also an interesting one, because it's the only one that is not a... It's inspired by an episode, but it's not a retelling of an episode.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it kind of has a retelling part of the episode, but not...
Well, I haven't seen that episode yet, so for me, it's not.
But like, not in the same degree, right? Because it's not like, a character who was there that we've seen on screen.
Yeah.
Because all these characters in this one are new.
Yeah.
The only one that's, like, not new in the story that is mentioned is Mother Talzin.
Mm-hmm.
She's not even really in the story. Like, she's just mentioned.
Yeah.
Because we follow a character named Bug, which is not obviously her actual name, but it's like her only name because she forgot her real name over time.
Because her parents suck.
Yeah. Her parents called her that after she killed a bug.
No, she tried to make a bug a pet.
Oh yeah, she tried to make a bug a pet. That's right.
Board.
And then her mom killed it, right?
Yeah. Her mom hit her with the classic, "If you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about."
Yeah, her parents are not great, but they own like a like a inn/cantina sort of thing.
And they basically have the only phone in town.
And so,
on planet, I guess.
Bug definitely doesn't want to be on this planet anymore.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't want to live here. I want to get out of here and go adventuring someday and get away from here. The usual, high fantasy/sci-fi sort of thing. And so, eventually, though, there's a specific visitor that has a Tuca cat. And she is a very creepy lady.
Yep.
We learn is a Night Sister.
I don't know, but I think she might be a witch.
Yeah. She's just not part of Mother Talzin's coven, right? Because she does not like Mother Talzin. That's what we learned very quickly.
No, she does not.
Because her daughter fell for Talzin's, whole manipulation and her...
Yeah.
Because Mother Talzin has a bit of a high charisma stat.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to give some D&D points here. Talzin's got that high charisma. Which is probably also her magic.
Yeah.
That's also...
She's a sorcerer.
Yeah, she's a sorcerer.
Never trust sorcerers.
And so she... It's even funnier because of the TikTok I sent you.
Yeah.
So we can talk about it. We can go
Sure.
off. Yeah, we've got time. So I sent you a TikTok
Mm-hmm.
that was I forget the name of the guy, but he does D&D videos.
Yeah.
And he was retalking a story from Lovecraft, a short story that was basically like, oh, this family think that they're cursed by a sorcerer, and then they all start slowly dying off. Accidents just keep happening in their house.
Yeah.
Nope, turns out he was actually breaking in and killing them himself. And what made it even better is that his name was Charles Le Sorcerer. So you doing the never trust sorcerers thing?
Never, not once.
You could really, even if you wanted to make it even funnier, make it even more shorthand of Chuck Le Sorcerer, because Chuck is short for Charles.
Throw the sorcerer. That's not what happens in this story.
In this one, so this...
I actually really like the Falta, I think.
Yeah, Falta is
telling the story, because I'm like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah, and so she's basically giving a very rundown version of the massacre episode, where she's like, yeah, Grievous came and killed all of them because of what happened, like, because Mother Talzin chose sides, and so, like, Falta lost her daughter I'm trying to remember the name of...
Who was not born in the traditional sense, if Falta is to be believed.
Which... I can believe it.
I would buy it too. Actually, I do buy it.
Yeah. And because it makes sense to me, because, like, we already know that they do that kind of stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like... but we also learn about, like, old Daka, which is part of their culture of, like, people that they believe in that are magical and kind of on the same level as Talzin.
Mm-hmm.
Yenna was the daughter. There we go.
Yeah.
So Yenna, however, falls for the propaganda of Talzin, joins her clan.
And it's unclear if she is killed.
We don't know if she survived the
massacre and sent away.
Yeah, we aren't ever given the answer of if Yenna survives the massacre. But we know, like, there are some survivors of that massacre, because we've seen now in multiple pieces of Star Wars media that this happens, because you know about the massacre from other pieces of Star Wars media that we've talked about, because Jedi Fallen Order references it, with Marin being a survivor of it. We get it in Tales of the Empire, where we see a different perspective of it from a clan that wasn't involved with them, that were, like, also attacked because of a member who was in that clan who shifted over to being part of the mountain clans. And so we see, like, it's all just a big puzzle piece, right? And so it is interesting seeing this side and seeing people who were from a different clan going, yeah, this is all Talzin's fault. I never trusted this from the beginning. And so it's just like, oh, okay, so not everybody was, because this is before we really knew about any other clans, because this book came out in 2020. So we didn't have a lot of information regarding other clans at that time in canon yet. Whereas now we're getting more of that, right? We also get, Bug gets revenge on her parents.
Yeah. She doesn't kill them.
No.
And it's not, like, permanently damaging, at least if Falta is to be believed. She's like, they're just gonna think that they're, like, I don't know, a dog for a couple of days.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? You didn't kill your own parents.
So you're not evil.
And they do deserve it.
But you also got a fair enough of revenge to be like, okay.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm fine with that. This is not, like, because it's not permanent, right? I think is the thing that makes me okay with it.
Yeah, they just needed a way for them to not remember her Bug, and that Bug could escape, essentially, this life.
Yeah.
Because Bug decides to go with Falta and be like, I'm gonna... Or we assume this is Falta, but, because she tells it in a way where she's like, this lady I know.
Yeah.
But it's Falta. I really like the Tuca cat in this, by the way.
Yeah. Fucking Sassy ass cat.
But yeah, Falta basically also recognizes Bug's potential to be like somebody of worth, based on watching her play the Dejaric board
Yeah.
and watching her play by herself against herself.
That was a. It's weird that you played alone, but it was a pretty good game.
Yeah, it was a pretty impressive game. You got good game. Good game. Good game.
And like Falta, do you like stories, child? I swear I didn't do anything wrong.
What's great though is that it's the Tuca cat though that surprises her first, and the cat's like, ah, gotcha, bitch.
Yeah.
And Bug's like, ah.
And she's like, do you like stories? To which, after Falta is like, do you like stories? And she's like, I'm not a child, or like, I'm not a baby or something. And
Falta's like,
oh, that's fine.
You can still enjoy stories.
Yeah.
Sit down. Shut up.
Sit down. And like, she's
learn
like,
a lesson.
That's fine.
She's like, you're gonna learn a lesson. Sit down and shut up.
And she's like,
which we do learn that Falta was using some of her magic to get Bug to listen to the story.
Yeah.
Because at the end, Falta's like, yeah, I was already manipulating you. Now I'm going to manipulate your parents if that's okay.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me listen into this voicemail. Thankfully, I don't have to scour the entire outer rim. I just have to scour the mid rim, which is a lot easier.
Yeah. It saves me some time. Because we learned that the mission is to still keep looking for Yenna, right? Because she's like, well, I don't know if she actually is dead or anything, so I'm going to keep looking. And it's like, oh, okay. So the only thing I'm disappointed in is that we don't know whatever happens to them. This is a case of, well, that's it. Over. No continuation of that story.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out some other time.
Yeah. I think that's it for today.
You already gave your review of the book, and I don't think I'm going to be able to change your mind.
I mean, I might push it to a 7.5 if I'm being...
I think I'm going to lean more on the side of generosity and give it an 8.
That's fair. I like I said, it's not bad, so like I'm not against giving it an 8. It's just...
I feel like if some of the stories were removed, it would probably be a little bit better.
Or at least switch which episodes you talk about, like, because there are some other episodes where I'm like, I would have liked to see a different perspective of those, or more original stories. Even I was fine. I like Bug, where you can say they're inspired by episodes like Bug was, where Bug is still obviously inspired by Massacre, because that's like a major plot point in Bug. But you could have done new characters, new stories, that seeing how people are affected by the war, right? I would like to see more Bug and more Falta and see if maybe they find Yenna. That would be great. But and then of course Kenobi Shadow is just so good. It reminds you that adult fiction and like just because this is Disney Publishing, this isn't this isn't Penguin Random House, so this isn't one of their adult novels. So this is their like young adult to junior publishing branch, right? Because Disney Publishing tends to do that end of it, right? And I goes to show you can't. I mean, we've talked about this before. You can't judge based on the audience that the thing is written for. Because sometimes you get some dark stuff and some good stuff, even in some of the younger audience, like books that are made for a younger audience. Yeah. You still get some pretty dark stuff, which is interesting. I mean, we grew up like in the Goosebumps and the Animorphs and stuff like that, proving that you can get away with a lot with kids media. And so I think people forget that when they go, I'm not reading that, it's written for... It's like, yeah, but you read darker stuff. What do you mean? But I like it overall. But yeah, thank you. I mean, unless there's anything else you want to add.
Not about this particular book. Just thanks for the authors.
Oh yeah.
Going through it.
Yeah, let me give like proper shout outs to each of the individual authors, just so we can kind of like. I did Kenobi Shadow, which was Greg Van Eekhout. He was great. Jason Fry for sharing the same face, which was the Yoda story. Lou Anders for Dooku Captured. Preeti Shiber for Hostage Crisis. and Ursu for Pursuit of Peace. Yoon Ha Lee for The Shadow of Umbara. Tom Engelberger, who we've had a few short stories from, for Bane's story.
The Lost Night Sister by
Zoraida Cordova. Woo! Pre-High Republic. Zoraida Cordova did a lot of short stories too. They tend to pick Disney era of authors tend to do the short story thing with their authors first, see how that goes, and then we'll pull them usually from that. So the short stories are kind of like the test run of
the proving ground.
Yeah, it's your proving ground. Rebecca Roanhorse did Dark Vengeance. Sarah Beth Durst did Almost a Jedi, and Ian Convery for Bug. So, wonderful authors all around. I think all of them did a great job. Would definitely like to see more Jason Fry somewhere. Tom Engelberger, I wouldn't be against doing some adult fiction. Maybe a Bane book. Give him a Bane solo novel. No. There's some interesting stories you can tell with Bane, because there's a huge gap in Bane's history now, since we know when Bane dies, versus when Clone Wars ends, or even Bad Batch, because he appears in Bad Batch. So from Bad Batch to when he dies, there's kind of that huge gap.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it for today. Thank you all for watching today's episode of Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I've been your host, Caleb. Be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe to us. You can find us at Escape Reality Films on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and TikTok. You can also show your support for us by joining our Patreon, which is at Escape Reality Films. Shout out to Jennifer Brantley.
Woo!
There you can watch our YouTube content before it's publicly available. Also be sure to check out our Discord, which is also linked wherever you are watching, so you can become a part of our community. Also, if you're watching, I mean, you can see the link right there. That's the link to get to our Discord. You can also find me on Twitter at Escape Reality 94. And of course, once again, want to thank today's sponsor, HelloFresh. Once again, the code's now in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, it's down below in the description box.
If you use that code within the next 30 days, you get
10 free meals and a breakfast free for life. Yep. Which, hey, take advantage of it while you can. It helps us out too if you do.
Yeah.
So that's another way to show your support for us on the channel. Once again, though, shout out to our friends.
Yeah. You can catch some friends of ours over on YouTube at the Steam_Dungeon playing through a 5e campaign, Trials of Nebu. Boy, oh boy, Mana got possessed again. This is gonna be fun for the party to deal with because they need a map. But first, getting your teammate unpossessed takes priority.
So it's Blair Witch Project.
Kinda.
They need a map.
Yes and no.
They need a map and somebody's possessed.
They need a map.
And somebody's possessed.
And somebody's possessed.
It's very Blair Witch, but I approve.
It's unclear how it works, but sure.
So yeah. Once again, though, thank you all for watching. Join us next week as we discuss the High Republic Tears of the Nameless, which means we're going back, baby.
Yeah.
And it's another George Mann book, so... Which we love George Mann around here. We love all the authors around here. What am I saying? Anyways, I have spoken.
Y'all be safe out there.